Plugin of the week is the Manny Marroquin delay. The Manny Marroquin delay is a delay processor designed specifically by Manny Marroquin as part of the Signature series by Waves. Essentially, it is a either mono to stereo unit or a stereo to stereo unit. So if you work with it on the insert of a track, you would typically go, if it was like, say, a vocal, you would put it on as a mono to stereo instantiation. Otherwise, you would put it on, if you're doing the send return kind of setup, then you would put it on the on an effects end, feeding into an aux channel and then having it set up. And the difference is that you would be 100% wet versus a mix of dry and wet. Okay, and so that's your basic differences from there. Now, the way that the plugin works is that you have two delay controls, one for the left and the right. They can be linked together. So now if I adjust one here, what's going to happen is they are both going to adjust at the same time, or one, oops, I switched the link off. I did exactly the opposite. So when the link is on, now they work together. When the link is off, I can now put them independent of each other. So this gives me the ability to now make this like an eighth note, make this eighth note, that's a triplet. Let's see if I can do a dotted eighth note. I guess that's more. All right. So anyway, I can also go here and just select it, which would probably be the easier way to do it. Then I have two feedback controls. Now, the feedback only feeds back into the same side. So the left feedback does not cross-feed into the right feedback, and the right feedback does not cross into the left. It regenerates only on the same side. You have a high-pass and low-pass filter. Okay, so if you want to adjust the delay time, you can set it to milliseconds, and then it will show you a value in milliseconds as opposed to showing you the value of the host application. So that converts the actual tempo into quarter note delays, eighth note delays, etc. Now, in this case, because it's the send return mode, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this open to, as a feed from a send into the delay, and we'll leave it 100% wet. And this gives us the ability to filter. Now, what's cool is if you link these two, what happens is that the two filters get tied to each other, and then I can adjust them accordingly, or offset one from the other, link them, and then you can widen or narrow them from there. So this just gives you the ability, or if I want to kind of move them around, then I can grab both of them and slide them around this way. And this allows me to focus the actual filtering of the delay signal. Now, the way that this actually works in terms of signal flow is the audio signal comes in through the input control, and then it feeds the wet dry. The dry signal feeds the output level control. And we can monitor the left stereo or right signal, right, by flipping on the switch over here. When we actually, then the split signal goes into the delay section, and then the delay section has feedback and all that stuff. It goes into the filters, and then from there goes into a series of effects that get added on to the delays. So I can add reverb to the delays, I can add distortion to the delays, I can add a doubler effect or a phaser effect, right? So all of those things can be added on top. So essentially the signal gets multed. As long as I keep this 100% wet, that dry signal doesn't get through. Everything else goes through just like the normal delays. So let's have a listen and just see, cue up to the vocal here. And
it's no mistake that we're here as the plans of love unfold. Coincidence is what we're told.
So I can actually...
How to explain we appeared in this perfect time and place instead of drifting off in space, 'cause we're meant to be.
So now what I have is some delays. They're not exactly the right timing because I don't have the host at the exact application or the exact timing here. But let's see here. So I'm going to add a little bit of feedback here. And so now the effects are filtered.
It's no mistake that we're here as the plans of love unfold. Coincidence is what we're told.
And that helps to add some distance to the sound. So I'm going to bring up the effect level here.
It's no mistake that we're here as the plans of love unfold. Coincidence is what we're told. How to explain we appeared in.
So now I have all these delays, and I'm exaggerating the effect just so you can kind of hear it here. I'm going to lighten up a little bit on the feedback. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some reverb. So what's cool about this is that it has a size control, and I can turn the reverb on, and then this gives me an amount. So this is adding to the dry delay signal.
It's no mistake that we're here as the plans of love unfold. Coincidence is what we're told. How to explain we appeared in this perfect time and place instead of drift.
So one of the most common things that happens when you add reverb to the delays is it adds depth. And that's like one of the big things that you want to do in this case. Now, distortion is not a typical thing that you would find for a vocal like this. And let's see if I can find another place where it is a little bit less busy.
Planted a seed of truth.
Let's see if there's another section.
Set me free, meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny?
Okay, so once I got this now, I'm going to skip the distortion for or actually do the distortion right now. So the way that this works is when I enable this, and I'm just going to disable the reverb here for a second. The send level determines how distorted the audio signal is.
Meant to be.
And this is the amount.
Can't you see you're my destiny? Set me free.
So I can make it more or less distorted based off of the send level. And then I got the amount of distortion.
Meant to be. Can't you see?
And then there's a width control on the distortion that makes it actually wider in the stereo imaging.
Can't you see you're my destiny?
And I think the way that it does this is it sort of varies that distortion, the characteristic of it on either side, which creates a little bit more of a width effect. The other thing is a doubler. And what this can do is I can also detune the doubler. The idea is that this is meant to be like a widening kind of effect.
Meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny? Set me free.
And then if I detune it, I can get like plus minus a whole tone.
Meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny? Set me.
So if you do that and add a little distortion in, then you get.
Meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny?
You can sort of get a little bit of the demonic kind of thing going on. And then there's also a phaser. And this is like adding a phase effect. So that's a very, very, very short, less than a millisecond delay with some modulation.
Meant to be.
And this is
Can't you see you're my destiny?
And this speeds up the rate of the modulation. So
I planted a seed of true love in my mind so long ago. Then you.
right, so that adds a little bit of a phasing kind of effect. And I can mix any amount of all of these in here.
Meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny? Set me free. I planted a seed of true love in my mind so long ago. Then you appeared, it's time to grow.
So even though like I'm just putting in a little bit of distortion, and this makes it a little more lo-fi kind of sounding, which is kind of cool. So I can use any combination of all of these effects.
Meant to be. Can't you see you're my destiny? Set me free.
So the idea is that it gives you all of these different tools. And so it's a very common thing when you start to work with delays. It's not just a simple, okay, feed a vocal into a delay, even if it's on a delay throw or something. There's usually more things that are added on top of it. So you are filtering delays. That's the most common thing. You could be modulating the delays to create, chorusing or movement, distorting the delays, adding other, width effects and things like that. Reverb is a very common thing. And so what this does is this plugin kind of incorporates all these tools, and what it does is it allows you to just sort of get started and create like an effect and have sort of everything in a box. And that's more or less what the Signature Series stuff is, particularly like the effects processor things. You get a mix of a lot of different characteristics and things, and you can just get little sliders, and it makes it really easy. You don't have to actually create all the effects yourself. And so sometimes in a pinch, it's easy to just call up one of these guys, call up a preset, get in a quick, sound on something, and it's actually very good sounding. Like he's somewhat famous for the way that he works with delays, and delays are an incredible way of creating vibe and groove and depth if you know how to use them. And it's a very powerful one. So, not a bad one. This is the Manny Marroquin delay by Waves.